you very much, Madam Chairman. Good to see you, Senator.
Good to see you, Senator.
Delighted to have you before the Labor Committee. So I just want to follow up on Senate Bill 228. In your testimony, you suggested that we don't want to see someone lose their health coverage because they're striking. And I'm sympathetic to that notion, except I think that under current law, there's no prohibition on someone being able to purchase insurance. I guess what I'm after is really an understanding of what you're trying to do here. Are we suggesting simply that the employer must maintain the policy and allow the employee an opportunity to make the payments on it? Or are you asking what to me is a nonsensical notion to say that the employer should continue paying for that health coverage when the employee's on strike? If you could just clarify for me, through you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. I believe that what the language 228 specifies is that Chapter 557 be amended to allow, first of all, to allow employees to obtain and maintain health insurance through the Connecticut Health Insurance Exchange should they lose employer health insurance as a result of a labor dispute. I believe the language of that would indicate that they should be able to maintain and obtain health insurance at no additional cost to them if the employer is providing paid coverage at the time of the labor dispute.
Senator Sampson.
Thank you for that answer, Senator. And through you, Madam Chairman, just to follow up, I understand that the bill mentions the health insurance exchange, except that if you're asking the employer to continue paying for the health coverage, then why wouldn't they simply keep the same health policy in force instead of finding some mechanism to pay for them to be on the exchange? Am I understanding this correct?
No, that's a good point. That's that I think is a point well worth making. That I would invite the committee to check the operation of the California statute, which is the model for this. So the way you suggest is also certainly another option to maintain the coverage in place.
Thank you. I just want to be clear that I wasn't suggesting that, Senator. I guess my only follow-up question would be, through you, Madam Chairman, is where do you stop? I mean, at that point, if you're asking an employer whose employees are striking to pay for their health benefits, why not just ask that employer to pay them at the same time, too? Give them absolutely no incentive to come back to work. Through you, Madam Chairman.
Senator Looney.
Well, thanks, Senator Sampson. We don't have a bill that would provide that, but there is another bill, I believe, pending that would revisit the issue last year about allowing workers to get unemployment benefits during a strike after a period of time if the strike goes on for too long. So that partially addresses the issue that you raise.
Thank you, Senator Looney. Any further questions?
Thank you. Of course, I remember the bill, Senator, and not that I appreciated or agreed with that premise either, but there's a big difference between allowing unemployment insurance to continue, which I don't think is a good idea either. But the difference here is you're asking the same employer that the person is striking against to continue paying them effectively. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I just want to make sure that I have that correct, that that's the bill that's before us, that we are going to propose to ask employers to continue paying their employees when they go on strike. To me, the whole purpose of going on strike is to negotiate the terms of employment and compensation. There's no reason to do that ever again. Everyone should go on strike and still continue getting paid. Or maybe I will go and get one job where I go on strike to get my health care paid, and then I'll get another job and work someplace for my pay. I just want to understand this, because I got to tell you, Senator, with all respect, it seems absurd to me. The people work and the employer pays them for their compensation. And the law allows for a strike, but for the purpose of negotiation. It doesn't put the lever on one side or the other to benefit an employee versus an employer or vice versa. And I would be very hesitant to engage in that.
I see your point, Senator, but I think the fact is that the employee continues to be an employee while he or she is on strike. assuming the employee has not been terminated, he or she is still technically an employee, although at the time a striking employee. And therefore, I think it makes sense to continue the benefits during that period.
Thank you, Senator Looney. Senator Sampson, are you finished? Yes. Representative Acker.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good afternoon, Senator. Good to see you.
You too.
Just reading through your testimony, I think I've already stated, I don't know if you were not here for the earlier conversation we had about this bill proposal. I have some concerns about it, but I wanted to ask you about your testimony. Certainly, you mentioned that there's a concern about employees who are being charged for training costs or fees when they have not been delivered, and I'm certainly sympathetic to that. The labor commissioner was here earlier, and she said that this practice is already prohibited under law, but I don't think she understood that we were talking about something that happens at the beginning of an employment contract, not at the end. Because it seems to me what you're trying to do here is not so much prohibit an employer from being able to recoup their costs at the end of employment, but prevent a contract from ever existing that has those terms. Am I correct about that, Senator?
Yes, we do want to make sure that something's not in a contract when somebody's first employed. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm very curious to understand the logic behind this, because my understanding is that employers are offering training and other benefits to employees or potential employees as a mechanism to encourage them to come work for them, and also because we have a labor shortage in some areas. Manufacturing, being able to operate some of the more sophisticated machinery requires certain types of training, and as you know, we're losing, some of this qualified labor to other states for various reasons. What's there to protect the employer then if they can't put something into a contract that says, I'll hire you if you understand that, I'm going to spend a lot of money to get you trained for this job, and I expect you to stay on the job afterwards?
Well, thank you for that. And I guess I would disagree on the premise of the question that we have employees leaving other states for various reasons. I think those are your words, but because we have a great workforce here, and well, maybe one of the reasons why we're losing some of it is lack of affordable housing in the state, but that's probably for a different committee. But I would say that when you look at the study here, the Cornell study that was done, and how it impacts a lot of low-wage workers, many of whom are black and brown, and the fact that many of them may not even be aware that some of these provisions are being put into their employment contracts. And then when they try to leave, they can't leave because they are charged money for training that generally is probably done as part of their employment. That, I think, is something that is wrong, and that we should make sure we prevent.
Through you, Madam Chairman. So you and I can certainly debate the housing shortage and whether or not businesses are leaving the state. And I would relish the opportunity anytime, any place, to sit down with you and have that debate. But I'm going to try my best to stick to the bill before us. And to me, I'm my job here on the committee, as you know, is simply to be on a fact-finding mission. This is not the place to debate the merits of the bill. We may get to do that at some point in the Senate, and I look forward to that. But I'm really just trying to understand. You said that people don't know ahead of time, but we're talking about the exact purpose of this bill, which is to extend the current prohibition by saying that it also would apply if there is a contract. To me, the contract is the mechanism by which both parties do know what's going on. Are you suggesting that somehow people should not be responsible if they sign a contract to upholding the terms of it? Through
No,
Madam Chairman?
I certainly understand that question, and I would say that I would say back to you, is everything spelled out in a contract as to what all those costs are for training and other mechanisms that somebody may not be aware of as an employee? So, for example, if somebody goes to work in one of our fast food establishments, maybe on I-95 that Senator Kushner and I have worked with for many years, and there's somebody signs a contract and says you're going to pay for training costs, which I imagine would be a fairly innocuous statement to make. And next thing you know, somebody tries to leave or they quit, or they try to leave or they quit, and then they're all of a sudden handed a piece of paper that says you owe thousands of dollars for training. I don't think that's right.
Well, through you, Madam Chairman, I can appreciate you suggesting that it's not right, but it is right if both parties did agree to the terms. But what concerns me about this is not the low income wage earner that you're referring to. I'm talking about people that accept jobs of real significance in the aerospace and biochem industry and other places where those employees may not be able to afford to get the education that they want or need on their own anyway. The mechanism by which they will get the training, even the U.S. military, recruits people by promising them an education effectively. It seems to me is that if that is part of the offer for a position, I'm going to give you this job, and it's going to come with a very valuable set of training. I think it's wrong to suggest that employers would not be able to protect themselves against someone taking advantage of that. And my great concern, Senator, respectfully, is that what you're going to do effectively, if you do this, is you're going to prevent that activity altogether. So employers will not be able to offer incentives. And reading this bill for the very first time, I thought immediately of some small machine shops in my area who have had tremendous difficulty keeping experienced employees on the job because they end up moving to other locations. They get recruited by other states. So what they have resorted to is partnering with us in some respects and the various community colleges and various things to get younger applicants who they agree to train and spend a lot of money on. And they build it into the contract. They say, look, I'm going to spend all this money and I'm going to train you and you're going to have a job that pays $100,000 a year at the end of this. But you can't leave me in 2 years. You've got to stay for some period of time to make it worth my while to do so. If we pass a law like this, that goes away. Those job opportunities go away, and so do the jobs themselves and their employers. I offer that as a statement, for your consideration going forward, Senator, and I appreciate the opportunity and the indulgence. Thank you, Madam Chairman.